The fall of Daystar, how a $760,000 jet bill exposed a Christian media empire. In 2025, over 30 of the biggest names in religious broadcasting, Joyce Meyer, Greg Laurie, Jack Hibbs, Ray Comfort, Jesse Duplantis, walked away from Daystar Television within a single year. Not a slow fade, a mass exodus from a network that reaches roughly 100 million homes worldwide, and that should have been the crown jewel of their careers. To understand why, you have to go back 3 decades and follow the money, the lawsuits, and one leaked recording that finally cracked the whole thing open. A quick note, none of what follows is a theological judgment. It's a look at the paper trail, court filings, sworn testimony, leaked audio, and reporting, showing how the organization behaved when its own image was threatened. The product was never television, it was credibility. Daystar began in 1993 as a single local station, KMPX, in Dallas-Fort Worth. Founders Marcus and Joni Lamb built it into a global network on one foundation, their own image as the flawless, morally upright Christian family, spiritual parents to millions of viewers. That's a fragile thing to build an empire on. And when the empire's whole revenue model depends on the founders looking perfect, any threat to that image gets treated as an existential threat to the business. 2010. The Affair, The Whistleblower, and Dr. Phil. Marketing executive Jeanette Hawkins discovered Marcus Lamb was carrying on a years-long affair with a senior employee. Rather than an internal investigation, Hawkins says leadership pressured her to help bury it.
Our marriage is better today than it has ever been.
You are just an absolute angel, and I am madly in love with you, and you mean so much to me.
However, I do want to share something with you, and it is this. About, several years ago, Marcus and I went through a challenge in our marriage, and I discovered that he was having an emotional relationship, if you will, with someone, and that it had turned into an improper relationship.
I take 100% responsibility. Joni has no blame. The other person doesn't have any blame. It's all, I don't even blame the devil. It's all on me.
These are some of our most private moments, but there actually are 3 people who were not involved in what we're talking about today or affected by our marital challenge they're now saying that unless Daystar pays them $7.5 million, that they're going to take our story that we just shared with you to the media.
You see, these 3 people that Joni shared with you, they're trying to take our pain and turn it to their gain. But ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to take God's money and pay to keep from being humiliated, I guess, or exposed or exploited, whatever you want to call it. I'm so sorry. I've asked God to forgive me years ago. I asked my precious Joni, and when this first came out, I said to her, I said, honey, I only want us to stay together if we really love one another, not for the ministry's sake, not even for our kids' sake.
Right.
And ladies and gentlemen, I love this woman.
So, before I make that to happen, but I do want to mention, because this was in your lawsuit, that Daystar actually complained to the Bedford Police Department and said, basically brought these allegations to them, saying that you were extorting them. And the police concluded and they issued a statement that after review of the details provided by Daystar and after consulting with the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office, there does not appear to be any criminal conduct under Texas law.
At a shared condo, her salary later rose to about $1 million a year following Marcus Lamb's death. Why the donations never stopped? None of this explains why people kept giving, until you factor in the theology behind it. Daystar leans heavily on the prosperity gospel. Give money to the ministry, and God will multiply it back to you. To an outsider, that looks reckless. To a believer, it's a deposit, not a donation. The human cost shows up in a single story from a former employee. During a telethon, an elderly woman in debt, with no savings left, called in believing an on-air promise that $1,000 would return $10,000 from God. She maxed out her only credit card to send it. The employee who processed that payment said they felt physically sick, realizing exactly what the system was extracting and from whom. That's institutional narcissism. In practice, an organization so fixated on its own growth that anyone questioning it becomes a threat to be neutralized, even as vulnerable people are treated as fuel. The inside job that finally broke it. The financial machine and the theology sustained Daystar for decades. What finally broke it wasn't an outside investigation. It was the founding family itself. Marcus Lamb, a vocal COVID vaccine skeptic, died of COVID-19 complications in November 2021. 18 months later, in June 2023, Joni Lamb remarried to Doug Weiss, less than 6 months after his own divorce became public. The speed raised questions. Weiss's resume raised more. A psychologist specializing in betrayal and sex addiction therapy, carrying 2 official reprimands from the Colorado State Board of Psychologist Examiners, and testimony from former clients, published by The Roy's Report, alleging his methods had re-traumatized them. Marcus and Joni's son, Jonathan Lamb, a Daystar VP and on-air personality, along with his wife Susie, began pushing the board to address Weiss's growing influence. The board's response was the same one Hawkins and Falcon had faced years earlier, now aimed at their own family. In November 2023, they called Jonathan in, presented him with a strict NDA, and threatened to fire him on the spot if he refused to sign. He refused anyway. The recording of that board meeting leaked, published in full by The Roy's Report. For the first time, broadcasters and the public heard, in leadership's own words, exactly how the organization handled internal accountability, by threatening the founder's son into silence. That leak is the direct line to 2025. Once your top talent has heard, on tape, how the institution treats its own family, staying affiliated becomes a liability. The exodus wasn't primarily theological. It was 30 broadcasters deciding they didn't want to be associated with what that recording revealed. The bigger question. Daystar's story runs from a single local TV station to a legally opaque, multi-million-dollar empire that protected its brand at every turn, at the expense of its employees, its donors, and eventually its own founders. It leaves a question worth asking beyond this one network. When an organization with global reach, a private jet, and 7-figure executive pay behaves exactly like a corporation the moment it's threatened, is church still the right word for it under the law? A cross on the roof doesn't guarantee the foundation is sound.